For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise, and you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble. Follow along at thescribbleshow.com and on SoundCloud and iTunes, and we're on Twitter at The Scribble Show. Crazy story for you. I'm going to tell you about a house fire that happened behind my house a couple of days ago. It's not something that you expect to see in the middle of the night, but I'm going to tell you all, and we've also got pictures on our website. I'm going to set this story for you, and then I've got a couple questions that I want to ask of you in terms of if this was you. How would you react and how would you respond? So that story is coming up, and an up-and-coming artist called Rosalie. She's going to be joining us to talk about her new music, and she's worked with the likes of some very legendary music folks. We're going to chat with Rosalie coming up in just a little bit, and as always, if there's anything that you want to share about your thoughts on this podcast, feel free to email live, L-I-V-E, at jbonair.com, live at jbonair.com. We've got some stories in the news coming up right after this.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Oh yes, Mr. Tight Ass here. I love that cheapskate commercial. Jeremy Bradley here. Thanks for joining us again today. So there's a story in the news. Pride Month, June just wrapped up, I guess a couple weeks ago now. And we had our executive producer, Bonnie Winters, on the show. We were discussing about Pride and how, and Miss America, how these types of pageants and different events really reflect on the community that it's supposed to represent, right? So with beauty pageants, or Miss USA it was, not Miss America. Thank you. Does this make beauty pageants look like bimbos and idiots when the one contestant who gives a stupid answer goes viral, and then it's that whole, these girls are idiots and they just parade around in bikinis and you don't take them seriously? Same thing with Pride, where most gay folks that I know don't wear boas and glitter and flounce around and, prance around half naked all day. But there's just something very over the top about Pride, which it makes the mainstream public, or people when you're watching it on TV, kind of go and say, well, you know what, that's a spectacle that I just don't need to deal with. So I can understand the arguments where, is it a fair representation of people, but also realizing that not everybody's a cookie cutter beauty pageant contestant, or, or gay man or woman or anything like that. But it's certainly, it's a reputation as a whole, right? So the mayor for my city, who's young, open-minded. Now, he's got he was attending Pride. He was in a purple boa. He's being pictured with everybody. He's having a great time at the festival. So there's a debate in the province of Manitoba where a very conservative elected official says that he's not going to go to a town's Pride festivities. And so then the mayor of Winnipeg is going and saying, you know what, it's not about what your own personal beliefs are. You're representing a community. You're representing the people in that neighborhood. And if they're having a Pride, then you should go to it, whether you agree with it or not. So even if it's a religious thing, right? If it's Ramadan, or if it's Hanukkah, if it's whatever, it doesn't matter if you are or you aren't. The fact is, it's happening in your community. You should be there supporting it. And your personal beliefs and your opinion really should have no say whatsoever, because I'm sure just like a mayor or an elected official in any other town, there's probably things that they don't agree with, but they just do it because they're the mayor and that's their job and they have to. So the mayor is kind of encouraging that, any sort of politician should be participating in these things just because that's the right thing to do. Your opinion means nothing. you're the mouthpiece, you're the voice of the community that you represent, or the constituency, or the people that you represent. So we don't care what you think. We've hired you to do the job, right? We voted you in. We've given you this job. Whether you should agree or disagree with it is not an issue. So what do you think about that? And we heard the same thing with same-sex marriages, though. Some priests don't want to perform the service, or some bakeries aren't going to make the cake. They're not going to sell them to a gay couple. That's one thing. If it's private business or if it's a house of worship, whatever it is, that's a little bit different. When you're a public servant, you're on the taxpayer dime. Do you have an obligation to go to those types of events? Would love to hear your thoughts. Live at jbonair.com, as I've already said. Live at jbonair.com. Tweet us at The Scribble Show, at The Scribble Show. And and again, it's the same. It would be no different than me, who's the host of a radio show, and we've covered Pride in Jasper, Alberta, and in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. Pride isn't necessarily anything that I would ever go to. If you want my opinion, I'm of the idea that it is a little bit over the top and sensationalized, and it doesn't really represent what the gay community or the gay culture is. If people have fought for so long it's no different than women. If you fought for so long to have the right to vote or to do this and do that, and then all of a sudden you're going and making a spectacle of it, and it's not necessarily a celebration anymore so much as it is just wanting attention, then I don't know that that's necessarily the right way to go about doing it. So yes, I'm of the opinion that Pride is a little bit too over the top for me and for my comfort level, so I don't go to it. But we did it for Jasper, and it wasn't, if you heard that podcast a couple of weeks ago with Bonnie, it was a fun time. It was more about, downhill skiing and family activities and just different things like that. So it didn't even seem like Pride. It just kind of seemed like it's just a bunch of gay people hanging out, which was really cool. Now, in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, the skin was showing, the clothes were coming off, it was hot there, and there's a bit of a sex appeal and kind of... But again, you have, commitment ceremony, you have a candlelight vigil, you have all these different things that happen. So when you get down to it, if you actually go to them and you experience them, it's not what... I guess part of it is what you see on TV or in the news or whatever it is, but there's a little bit more to it than that. But again, would I choose to spend an entire weekend or a full day going to a parade and doing all these things? No. But I don't do it for anything. So that's not to say that I'm against Pride, and it's just not for me. I think people, can protest or celebrate or picket or debate, whatever they want, if it's in a respectful manner. And that's fortunately how things work in Canada. Canada, yikes. I can't say the same thing for our friends in the US. The Americans have, some fairly significant battles when it comes to, discrimination, same-sex marriage, equal rights, all those kinds of things, as do many countries around the world. So, I think that back to the whole point of it being a politician, do they have the choice, or should they have the choice to go or support an event? You're just going. It's not like you're converting and you're going to don glitter and mascara and be a drag queen for a day. That's not what it is at all. Kudos to you, though, if you do want to do that, Mr. Mayor, or whoever is doing it. But, I had some emails after I wrote a newspaper column about it, on the same subject about it being a fair representation, and one reader had emailed and said, the mayor wouldn't normally do that. Is he pandering to the community? Is he sort of playing it up for the day? Well, most people there are playing it up for the day. But there are people who genuinely want to go there with their family, whether they're a gay family, like, gay parents or however you want to call it, a same-sex couple with kids, or even if it's just a straight traditional heterosexual, I don't know what the word is these days, and there's many just non-gay people that want to go and check out Pride because it's fun, and there's music, and there's dancing, or there's whatever it is. So I don't know, it's one of those things where you can't please everybody. You know that not everybody is ever going to be on board with anything, whether it's something positive, even world peace. There's probably going to be people that would be against world peace just because that's not right, and we need to have conflict because that's what makes the world go round, right? That's just the way things are. Rosalie, again, an up-and-coming artist, is going to be joining us a little bit. And at the top of the show, I also mentioned the crazy house fire that was behind my house a couple of days ago. I'm going to tell you about that. We've got another break coming up, and then we'll dive into the burning hot topic. See what I did there? We're back right after this.
It's never too early to start thinking about your next holiday. Have you checked out Mexico recently? From tequila tasting, swimming with horses, to ziplining through the jungle and watching whales and dolphins in their natural habitat, Puerto Vallarta has it all. Visit mexico.jbonair.com to see all the fun PV has to offer. That's at mexico.jbonair.com for hundreds of photos, interviews, and videos from around the tourist hotspot. Check out mexico.jbonair.com for all the fun. That's mexico.jbonair.com.
Scribble Dribble brought to you by Speak Free with JB.com.
Thank you.
Check out syndicated newspaper columnist Jeremy Bradley's rants and raves in his weekly news and entertainment columns.
Yay.
That's at speakfreewithjb.com. Since he's paid to not shut up, God knows why. Once again, Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. I'm not sure that this is Scribble Dribble because it's a very important story. There were some scary moments the other night at my house, so I'm going to set the scene for you. Basically, there was a house burning behind mine the other night. So, I've already got you hooked, right? So here's the deal. It's about 2:30 in the morning. You know, I had a late night. We were working probably until about midnight. I get home. I'm asleep for maybe about an hour, hour and a half, and then I hear what I thought is rain. We were expecting a crazy thunderstorm that night, so I just figured, okay, well, whatever. Now, there's a window beside my bed, and then there's a window across the way. My bedroom is upstairs. I've got a story-and-a-half house, and I keep the one window closed, the other one open. So then I hear very thin glass breaking, and I honestly thought it was my basement windows because my basement has very old, probably like paper-thin windows. And so I just chalked it up to, okay, well, you know what? The hail is heavy or hard or whatever, and it cracked a window. Whatever, no biggie. I'm not going outside to get pelted with hail right now. I'll come back and figure it out in the morning, you know, once it's all settled down. Then a few seconds later, I hear another piece of glass shatter, and I thought, okay, well, what's going on outside? Like, how bad is this storm? So I get up out of bed, I go across the house now to go downstairs. There's a window right by the stairs, and I see kind of an orange glow. So I just happened to look out, and I saw fire in the neighbor's back, across the way, across the lane. I saw fire outside. Now, a couple of days earlier, they were kind of loud at about 4 o'clock in the morning. My dogs heard it, started barking, woke me up, scared the crap out of me. But otherwise, I'd never really heard a peep out of those neighbors. I've lived in my house for about 8.5 years, and I don't know them. I wouldn't even recognize them if I saw them on the street or in front of their house even. And so it was just awkward that a few days ago, 4 in the morning, either drunk or whatever, I hear people in the backyard. Then I look out the window, and sure enough, there's people there. And so it's this house that's on fire, and it's one of those things where you're not expecting to see that in the middle of the night, because in all honesty, I sort of did a double take. At first, I was like, all right, whatever, it's a fire in the backyard, and then I walk away. And then I was like, wait, did I just see what I think I saw? Let me go and look again. And sure as poop, it's the back of the house is just engulfed with flames. We've got, I believe, a picture or two on our website, thescribbleshow.com. You can check that out, or also on Twitter perhaps as well. And, you know, and then you're kind of like, what do I do? It's not my house, so I'm not running around in a panic and freaking out, but it's somebody's house, and there could potentially be people inside that house. But the weird thing was that all I could hear was just crackling. It was like I'm sitting out by the fire, or I'm at a fireplace. There was no sound whatsoever. There were no sirens. There were no red lights flashing on a fire truck. There was no panic outside. You didn't hear anybody, you know, help, or any sort of rustling about. So then I'm sitting there kind of in a zone going, is it really happening? You'd think that there would be chaos. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. This house is burning. Where is everybody? Is this like a joke? What's going on? So before I started snapping pictures, because I know people were going to give me flack for taking pictures and tweeting them and posting them before calling 911 or making sure that everybody was okay, I did. I called 911, but then there's this whole dilemma where I'm second-guessing myself before I called, going, you know what, probably 10 people have already called. You know what, people have already let them know. I don't need to give them a call. But then, over the course of time, I'm sitting here going, I've been looking at this for at least a good 2.5, 3 minutes. There's still no sirens. The fire hall is actually just down the street from us. And so it should be quick to get there. So then I was like, well, maybe nobody has then, because again, there's no sound outside, there's nothing happening. I don't think that anybody knows about this. So then I happened to look, and their back gate was open. So I figured, Okay, well, at least they got out then, because the gate's open, and the gate wouldn't normally be open. So, all right, good. But where are these people? You'd think that they'd be in a panic. You know, you'd hear banging on the neighbors' doors. Hey, get up, our house, or something. There's absolutely nothing. So, I call 911. My heart's racing, because I've actually never called 911 before. And then I'm kind of like, should I be doing this? Well, of course, it's an emergency. Of course, you should be calling 911. It doesn't matter if there's 50 other people that have called. At least, you know, you get peace of mind. You can rest knowing you did what you could. Not that I was going to be rushing into the house to, you know, save anybody or check if there was anybody in there, but at least I've alerted the authorities. So I call 911. They ask the address of the, you know, what is your address of the emergency? And I don't know, because it's not my street. I can tell them the name of the street. But I said, like, it's behind, kind of diagonally behind my house, but they're going to see it. If the fire truck is coming down the street, they will see where this house is. And so, you know, they put me through to the fire department. I explained. They said, yes, you know, we've already had a call. We're on our way. And I'm sitting there going, you're not on your way, because I always hear the sirens when they're leaving the fire hall, but whatever. I didn't want to start challenging them at 3 o'clock in the morning. So moments have passed. I then go outside to take even more pictures and video from my backyard and then in the back lane still. And again, we've got these on our Facebook page, I'm being told, facebook.com/speakfreemedia, facebook.com/speakfreemedia. And again, there's no sirens, there's no red lights flashing in this video that was taken probably at least more than 5 minutes after I called, and at least probably 10 minutes since this fire started, because again, there was no explosion, there was no loud bang. This fire, you know, to the best of my knowledge, how fires go, is that it would probably start out small, and then the fact that the entire back of the house is engulfed with flames could mean that it's been a fire that's going for at least a few minutes, I would think. But again, don't quote me on that, not an expert. So then all of a sudden the sirens come, and you know, there's the hubbub of the fire trucks and the police, and then I guess the fire supervisor or whoever, you know. So it's all done by about 4 o'clock in the morning. Now, there's this fear, though, because when you're looking out, and I can see the fire now on their fence, which could then potentially spread to their neighbor's house, and then I see a hydro pole in the back lane with the lines that come to my house. And again, I don't know the structure of how our electricity and power works here, because all I need is for this pole to now start on fire, and then the line going to my house. So not that I was in a panic in my house, but you're certainly watching through the window going, I've got to be ready to get out of here on a moment's notice, because this could all of a sudden affect my house. Now, through telling people this story, it seems like most people are saying, you know what, it's not like it was right beside you, or, you know, but the likelihood. And I said, but you don't know if there's a barbecue in their backyard. They don't have a garage or anything, so there was no car that was going to explode. But again, there could be a propane tank or something up against the back of the house. That's where the fire is, and then boom. So my head is flipping into like tornado mode, going, don't be near any windows, because if all of a sudden there's an explosion and gas, or you know, and glass comes flying at me, and now I'm covered in shards of glass. Do I go to the basement, because you know that could be the safest place? Do I pack up the dogs and my rabbit and leave through the front door and just go somewhere? Like, what do I do? Do I call my parents and say, hey, by the way, it's 3:30 in the morning. I'm going to come by with the dogs and the rabbit just because my house might burn down. Like, honestly, you don't know what's going through your mind. Now, again, I'm sure I'd be freaking out if it was actually my house on fire, but again, you don't think about these things. You know, you always have your fire plan in the event of an emergency at home, but when it's actually happening, how much of that are you remembering? Because, you know, I'm going to be running around the house frantic. So I just didn't know what to do. Was my house in danger, immediate danger? Probably not. Was my life in danger? Probably not. But you don't know. You don't know if something's going to explode, and then who knows what's going to happen, right? All hell could break loose. So, you know, all of these things are going through your head in the moment, and then, of course, at about 4 or so, I'm like, well, you know, I'm just going to go back to bed. Well, you cannot go back to bed after something like that, really. Again, when you see these pictures, you're going to understand what I'm looking at outside my bedroom window. And I thought, okay, well, the sun's coming up. It's almost about 5 a.m. I'm just going to go walk the dogs, because whatever. I'm already awake. The morning is shot, basically, right? So then I go and we don't normally walk that direction, but we decided to take that street first, and now it's bright outside, and it seems like there was really no damage to the front of the house, aside from windows smashed, which I believe the fire department does. They weren't in the back lane fighting the fire, but the fire hydrants are on the front street. So just from the front, based on the smashed windows, that's really the only indication that something had happened at the house. It's from behind is where the action was. I had prime viewing. And it struck me as odd because you've got the back of the house that's fully engulfed in flames, but the back gate open. If my house is on fire and the fire's at the back, I'm going to exit through the front. I'm not going... That's why houses have two exits, right? A front and a back, or a side. And so that also kind of struck me as odd, because I'm thinking, when they had the rowdiness the other night and woke me up, I don't know if those people are familiar. Maybe they're out of town and these are people watching the house. I don't know. I don't know the makeup. I don't know the setup or the arrangement for the past week there. Definitely, I've never heard these people before, and there's never been any incidents. But the fact that there was a few days ago, I'm thinking that maybe those aren't the homeowners, or maybe they had a party and they're hanging with the wrong crowd now. I don't know. So to me, it seemed odd that you've got the back gate open, the fire in the back. So I thought maybe arson. Maybe there was something that happened at that party, or maybe they were drinking again, and then all of a sudden. So, all of these things go through your mind. And of course, there's absolutely no news coverage of this thing at all, so I don't even really know what happened. And here I am, a media guy. And newsrooms these days, you'd think are 24 hours. Unfortunately, in this city, they're just really not. I would love to know your thoughts on how you would deal with this. Again, completely different if it's your own house on fire. You get the hell out of there. You grab your loved ones, like your pets or whatever it is. You grab what you can in the moment. That's your instinct. For me, again, I wasn't expecting to I'm going to grab my valuables, and I certainly was not doing that. But again, if it's my house, I probably would. And so just send me an email or tweet us or something. Live, L-I-V-E, at jbonair.com. Live at jbonair.com is my email address. You can tweet us at The Scribble Show. And then again, we've got those pictures on Facebook at facebook.com/speakfreemedia. SPEAKFREE media, MEDIA.com. Facebook.com/speakfreemedia. When I talked to my mom the next afternoon, and I said, I almost called you guys, and, I wasn't sure where I should go in the house, if I should have left. Should I have gone to my neighbor's place? Again, he's across the lane. But should I have gone and started knocking on doors and waking people up? Because just the silence, it's deafening. When something like that is happening and there's absolutely stillness throughout your block in the neighborhood, is it your duty to then start going and knocking on doors and letting people know? I don't know. Live at jbonair.com. It's interesting, a couple of years ago, my cousin's house had a fire. There was an electrical thing. It wasn't arson. It wasn't smoking. It wasn't cooking. It wasn't anything like that. It was an electrical fire in their house in the middle of the night. And again, the smoke detectors start going. And she said, they've got 2 kids. They have 2 cats. Her and her husband are, what do you do in that moment? You don't start grabbing your valuables. You don't start grabbing jewelry and, your cell phone so you can record everything, which some people probably do, which again is why I wrote the book, Put Down Your Damn Phone Already. But, it's crazy because as much as you can prepare, you can have all these plans in the world. You don't know, you can have a fire escape, you can have whatever it is. You're not thinking rationally. So, again, not that I was in a panic. My house was not in danger. There was no, incident on my property or even my neighbors. It was across the lane. I don't know if there were injuries in the fire, again, because nobody's really reported. I don't know the neighbor, so I'm not going to just randomly. So, yeah. House was on fire this morning. You don't do that if you don't know them. You might, but I'm not that pushy with my neighbors. Remember, I'm a media personality in my city, so I'm not going to start going and, just randomly interviewing people about what happened, because I'm an entertainment and a cheapskate guy. That's what I do. I'm not hard news. So, live at jbonair.com, live at jbonair.com. Tweet us at The Scribble Show, and on facebook.com/speakfreemedia. We're back right after this.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com.
That's right, we are on Twitter as well. I was kind of just getting my knuckles wrapped there. I'm feeling very ranty today, and so we ran out of time and we don't have time for Rosalie. But the great thing was that it was a pre-taped interview, so we can always air that another time, maybe next week on the show. You know, I talk to celebrities all the time, and we have guests, and it's just refreshing to me, at least on the radio show anyway, and especially now that I can have 30 minutes of just straight talking to you, where you just kind of want a platform to have your opinion, have your say. I love being on the receiving end of emails, especially when people agree or even disagree in a polite manner, of course. And that's just what's great about it, right? It goes back to that whole attending a pride thing. You know, we're all entitled to having our opinion. We're all entitled to speak our mind. And, you know, and we can disagree, and that's what makes the world cool, right? And so, you know, that's why I like doing a 30-minute just sort of chatting about what's in the news, current events, hearing your thoughts. And as always, if there's even a story that you want to hear, I'm not even going to talk about Trump because I know that's sort of a battle that is never ending. But, you know, send an email or tweet us. And even if you want to be on the show, that'd be even cooler because it's great. We've only done it a few times. We're, 73 weeks into this, a little over a year. And, a few times that we've opened up the phone to a listener and had them on. And it's kind of great to have conversation, chatter, debate, you name it. We'll do it here, right? If we're going to talk sex like we did on show number 69, actually, we talked more relationships. I kind of wimped out on that. We planned to play up the 69 thing, right? You get the reference. And so I was like, oh my God, okay, we're going to talk about sex for 30 minutes. Yeah, okay, that's awesome. Because we're not on the radio, so we don't have to follow all the rules that we do on the radio. But then when the time came, we've got, a psychologist on the phone, a relationship expert. Maybe it was just awkward that she was a female, and I kind of felt strange, like, just talking sex with this woman. So I don't know if that's what it was, but I chickened out, and we ended up talking more about relationships and first dates and The Bachelorette. So again, live at jbonair.com if you've got a story that you want to share or you want to be on chatting with us, live at jbonair.com. Speaking of The Bachelorette, okay, are you watching this show? It's in the home stretch now. It's winding down. Hojo, as I call her, not Jojo, because I don't think a grown woman should be called Jojo. That's a 6-year-old girl's name. It's kind of funny. These people expect to be engaged after barely 6-7 weeks of knowing a person, and then at the same time, your one-on-one time with them is a few hours here and there. But they love each other right away. So I'm not sure if that's a sign of desperation. I don't know if it's that it's manufactured, so these people are in a bubble thinking that there really is nothing else to the world. It's interesting to see that Ben, the former bachelor from last season, and his fiancée are getting a reality show. And that there was a quote from the executive producer, or the producer of the show, saying that they're going to follow as she tries to establish her identity after The Bachelor. And to me, I read that as broadcast lingo going, we're going to try and make a character out of her. Because I didn't quite get establish her identity. Did she not have an identity before going on the show? So now we're expecting her to be a celebrity or quasi-celebrity? Because, what? I don't get it. I had an identity before I went onto the radio. I had an identity before I was featured in the newspaper. If you manufacture something, then that's becoming your identity. If it's natural, then okay. But I don't get why you'd have to establish an identity on a new reality show. To me, you're playing a character, you're not being true to yourself. That was my interpretation reading the press release that I saw a couple weeks ago when Ben is going to be, apparently, they're like the most loved couple in the past 10 years. None of the couples even stay together that long, so what does it really frickin' matter? I do live tweet Monday nights. Follow along at SF, as in Speak Free, SF Celeb Watch, and sometimes I do get a little bit off the hook, I'm not going to lie. I do get a little bit over the top sometimes with my tweets. But that's what's fun. I do not take the show seriously. I don't know that you should. I don't think you can take the show seriously. You're not in love with somebody because you've had dinner with them and then you went on a crazy scavenger hunt, or you went and watched a string quartet play. It's not. And that's why we see these relationships crumble sometimes weeks after the show has aired. So at SF Celebwatch is my Twitter handle. Would love for you to follow along and join in on those conversations as well. We're out of time. My apologies to Rosalie. Hopefully we can get that interview on the show next week. My name is Jeremy Bradley. This is The Scribble. I will talk to you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.
Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.
If you want some real heat